What's happening, everybody? Welcome to another episode here, the Side Guys Football Forum. I'm one of your co-hosts over the side, joined as always by my good friend, my good buddy, the other half of the Side Guys from the Tad side. And Tad, we're sort of jumping back into our general fantasy, analysis and input and things along those lines, because the past two episodes we sort of went back to the basics and we sort of did a fantasy 101 series, sort of giving people out there who have no idea what fantasy football is and are interested in playing fantasy football this upcoming season, sort of giving them sort of like a very quick overview as far as how to get into a fantasy league, what is everything that's required when you're in a fantasy football league and all that stuff. And so in case you're one of those people and you missed those two episodes, turn back, go listen to those episodes, or you can watch the YouTube videos as well, and you can sort of get a good overview as far as getting into fantasy football and participating in this hobby that me and Tad have probably spent majority of our lives just obsessing over.
That's a very sad way to put it, but you are correct. So if you're unsure of exactly, what exactly a make or break candidate is, then go back and listen to our past two episodes. You can find it on our Twitter and our Instagram. Right below on the ticker, you can see those for our YouTube audience. For our listening audience, Amr, do you want to list it off? Because I actually don't know yours. Amr, Decide 23?
You got me on the Side 23. You got Tad Side 94. Got the show handle at the Decide Guys and our Instagram at the Decide Guys as well.
God, you're so good at that. But bottom line being is, yes, so we did the general overview, but now you are correct. The first week of preseason is behind us, buddy. We are in the nitty gritty of it. Let's get to it.
Yeah, it's crazy. We only got 3 preseason games now, obviously. So we got 1 week down. So we only got 2 more weeks of preseason action before we'll get our first regular season game on September 5th between the Chiefs and the Baltimore Ravens. So we're coming close. We're coming right there. So for all of you guys who are preparing for your fantasy drafts, we're going back to our fantasy coverage here. So guys, make sure you tune in for all of our episodes going forward. And with the football season right around the corner, make sure you're betting with our great sponsors at Underdog Fantasy. We covered this in our previous 2 episodes as well, but a really great way to get into fantasy football is to play under Best Ball, which is one of the things that Underdog Fantasy is known for. Best Ball is pretty much you draft a fantasy roster at the beginning of the year. You make no changes after that whatsoever. So you make no trades. You make no waiver wire decisions. Nothing along those lines. Whatever you draft at the beginning of the year, that is your roster. It will maximize the highest scoring potential for each and every week for you automatically. Don't have to worry about moving guys from your bench to even your starting lineup. Underdog Fantasy takes care of all of that. But the thing that me and Tad love about Underdog Fantasy is the betting aspect. So you can bet on whatever sport you're comfortable with. The Olympics are over, but you can bet on the WNBA season because that is picking up this week. Obviously mentioned that the NFL season is going to be starting in a couple of weeks. You can bet on the preseason games too if you wanted to. The college football season will be starting in a couple of weeks as well. You could be betting on the final couple months of the MLB regular season, and of course when it gets to the playoffs, you can bet on the MLB playoffs as well. But whatever you're comfortable with betting, all you have to do is make between 2 and 8 different prop bet picks across whichever sports you're comfortable with. More picks you make, the more potential money you can win. And guys, Underdog Fantasy wants to share a promo code with you to really get in on the action. That promo code is DESAI. DESAI. You could double up on your initial deposit of $10 or more, up to $500, courtesy of our good friends at Underdog Fantasy. So, hypothetically, if you were to put in that max amount, $500, and use our promo code DESAI, DESAI, they will match that dollar for dollar, and you can bet with up to $1,000 on their betting platform. The website's easy to use. The app's on both Apple and Android devices, very easy to use as well. So guys, get into the action before NFL season comes around here, and you could really get into some fun here, make some money as we get to the final months here of 2024. And guys, just really easy to get into it. So that promo code once again is DESAI, DESAI. Double up on your deposit of $10 or more, up to $500, courtesy of our good friends of Underdog Fantasy. So Tad has mentioned this is sort of the draft month, August here for fantasy football. And so, I mean, we did a little bit of analysis beforehand. We've been dropping lots of graphics with all of our position rankings on all the social media handles that we listed off below, and we'll plug at the end of the episode as well. But yeah, we're sort of picking back up as you're sort of getting ready for fantasy drafts. We want to talk about boomer bust candidates. I mean, you could go by many other things. I think our running name for this was make it or break it candidates. Like, I mean, there's a lot of interchangeable terms for this type of player, but it's pretty much a player that's like, the hope was there. It's like, I think a great example we brought up before, but like Eric Ebron, the hope was always there when he was in Detroit. Thought he was going to finally break out. Thought it was finally going to happen. It never happened. What happened? He had to go to Indianapolis to finally become the guy that we all thought he was going to be. Think what, he scored 14 touchdowns that year, if I remember correctly.
That 1 year, after that, not so much.
Yeah, he fell off a cliff on that, but he finally realized
hence the overreaction. I was just like, yeah, that was a really nice year.
We had that 1 year, but just up till that 1 year, it was just always like he's going to break out, he's going to break out, going to break out, and then it finally happened. So that's the case with lots of the players that we're going to break up in today's episode. So Tad, who is one of those guys that you sort of classify in that sort of same conversation as you would with the early Eric Ebron?
Well, okay, so before we do that, I have a suggestion for you. Are you ready?
Sure.
And for our audience, no, we did not talk about this before the show, so this is a total surprise to him. I'm going to call it the boom or gloom pick.
Oh, God.
Boom or gloom is the best rhyme I could come up with. It was very short notice. So, if you think that my pick will bust, if you think that this is the break it year for him, he will be your gloom pick. If you think that this is possibly the year where this person can't recover, he is a boom pick. Okay, so we're going to basically grade each other's pick.
Okay.
I'm in teacher mode. I'm in grading mode. Do not judge me.
Oh, I'm judging you very harshly.
You always judge me. I know that goes without saying. But anyway, we're doing boomer gloom until you can. I also thought boomer doom, but doom sounded a little too, finalist.
Nah, that would have been a lot better instead of gloom.
Okay, fine. We'll go boomer doom. Fine, boomer doom. Robert Downey Jr., I see you. Okay.
Oh, gosh.
Make a whole podcast out of that casting. My first pick. I told you guys. I have been telling you for years now. He made me look like a fool, and we'll get into that. But I've been telling you for years, and god damn it, have I been proven right. I am saying one of my biggest boom or bust picks, make or break picks, call it whatever the hell you will. Najee Harris, you better show up this year, my man. My goodness. Sound like you want to say something?
I wanted to, but I'll let you finish your take.
Okay, thank you so much. So, Najee Harris, like I said, he made me look like an absolute fool. And I went half PPR with all my stats in this episode. His rookie year, he finished with 263 points, which was, enough to finish as the fourth best running back in fantasy football. Very good. I said he was going to be a fantasy bust. He made me look like a complete idiot. And I actually questioned myself at that point. Should I be doing a fantasy football podcast? Well, let's talk about his production ever since then. I almost said 2023. I'll explain that in a second. 2023. I had that correct. It was a typo. His sophomore season, he finished as the 14th best running back in fantasy football. Good, not great. Okay, he's still viable. Last year, he finished as the 21st fantasy running back. And sorry, I just realized the non-typo I had. That wasn't 2023. That was the amount of carries. So let's talk about the amount of carries he's had. So his rookie season, he had fantasy points. 263 fantasy points his rookie season, 203 his sophomore season, and then 181 last year. Tell me the last fantasy player you remember seeing that much of a drop, that consistent as well.
No, it's been some time. It's been some time for sure.
So obviously you can blame, Jaylen Warren for a lot of this. And I think that blame is, properly placed. But at the same time, if he's truly a, dependable fantasy running back, you should not have a guy like Jaylen Warren, who is, let's admit it, not a true number one running back, eating into your production all that much. And how about this, Amir? I'll be interested to see if you know this. Do you know who the Steelers' third string running back is?
Third string running back.
Third
Yeah,
string
no,
running back. Okay.
Is it Cordero Patterson?
It is Cordero Patterson.
Yeah,
You
I
are
thought
correct.
he signed with Pittsburgh in the offseason. So, yeah, that sounds familiar now. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I know you know the answer to this one. Do you know who Pittsburgh's offensive coordinator currently is?
That is Arthur Smith.
And God damn it, does Arthur Smith love him some Cordero Patterson. I said that since, last offseason when I was down in Bijan Robinson. I told you guys, I was like, that Cordero Patterson thing is going to be, the Achilles heel of this Falcons offense. And look at who ended up being right, because around what was it, like week 10, 11, 12 last year, Bijan Robinson was lighting it up. All of a sudden, Cordero Patterson came back out of nowhere. Sure. And so it was one of those things I was like, really? They signed him? And then I remembered, I was like, oh, yeah, Arthur Smith is there. That makes more sense. So if Najee Harris even has a bad couple weeks, stretch, there's a very real possibility that Jaylen Warren and Cordero Patterson, I'm not going to say take over for Najee Harris, but eat into his production to essentially make him a flex option at best. And so I really think that Najee Harris needs to prove himself as the, I can handle offense by myself. And by the way, I'm not the only one thinking this way. Pittsburgh declined his 5th-year option on his rookie contract. And they openly stated, and this is Pittsburgh, keep in mind, who likes to keep things pretty in-house. This is Pittsburgh saying, yeah, we want to see how he does in new offense. They have publicly stated that, saying, like, we want to give him a prove-it year, and you know how much I love prove-it years, but I don't think this is a prove-it year that's going to work out. This offensive line is still very injury-prone. This offense still has major question marks around it. We don't know, still to this day, we don't know who's going to be the starter week 1. They're saying it's Russell Wilson. You hear those sirens? That's Pittsburgh going crazy right now.
They're concerned with Pittsburgh.
They are very concerned, my friend, as they should be. And so my entire point is Najee Harris is just such a giant question mark, and this is a make or break it year, not just within fantasy football, but on the field for him as well. So I think I just don't see with Najee Harris. Honestly, I see him as barely draftable in my eyes. He's going to have some good games. He's going to have some games where people are going to, message me on Twitter, message me on Instagram, and be like, oh, remember when you said don't draft Najee Harris? And I can hit you right back when he scores 2 points the next week. So I'm telling you, Najee Harris, he's a make or break candidate. He's going to be a break. I'll put him in the doom category.
See, I can't really definitely say doom or a boom in this situation. I think it's going to be very much in the middle. So I guess maybe slide more the doom aspect, because I agree with everything that you said. But I think what's going to happen more is that we're going to see a full running back by committee approach, an RBBC approach here. So it's like we will see a week where Najee Harris absolutely goes off, and he looks like a guy that, we saw in his rookie year from a couple seasons ago. Then we're going to see Jaylen Warren absolutely just, go beastly, and he's going to have a successful game. Then we'll also see, for some reason, Cordell Patterson will have himself a fantastic game where it's like he'll probably have like a 50-yard reception for a touchdown that's going to get him a massive amount of points. He'll get added a few rushing attempts as well. And so people are going to think, oh, is he now the lead back? But I think because they're going to rotate so heavily among all 3 guys, because we saw this last year where it's like exactly you brought up the point with Bijan Robinson. The carry difference as far as just purely rushing attempts between Robinson and Tyler Algier was like maybe, I think, 50 or 60 attempts that Bijan Robinson led it. So it's like very much we saw that he wanted to involve that second running back in that approach there. So it's like, yeah, you see here where they signed Cordero Patterson. You got 2 capable running backs in Jaylen Warren and Najee Harris. So it's like, I think it's going to be very split between both those guys. So either they can both potentially succeed, or they're both successfully, unfortunately, hurt each other and sort of cannibalize each other, which we've talked about in the past there. So I think with the new look offense, it's going to be tough to rely on the passing game. So that's why we'll see more of the running game, but we're not going to see enough of one guy to be like, oh, this is the guy that I want to bake my roster on.
I think it all depends on his ADP. If you're drafting him to be a flex / running back 2 option, I think, okay, fine. I still think that's a little risky, but that's a fair risk. Yeah. But at the same time, I think he's such a big name, he being Najee Harris, that people are still going to draft him as a RB1 or low end RB1, admittedly. And that's a mistake in my mind. He's washed at this point. Like it's going to take a lot for me to turn my opinion around on him, because I've been low on him, like I said, ever since he was drafted to the Steelers. And my opinion's that this is possibly the lowest it's ever been.
And that's fair. That's fair. I think we really have to see how Arthur Smith, whether he could change that offense for Najee Harris to sort of get the most out of him, or yeah, that's not going to make a difference. And he's going to find himself playing with another team next year. And whether he'll have any sort of fantasy relevance at that point, we'll have to see about that. So, Tad, you're talking about a former Alabama Crimson Tide player here. I got to bring up another one here that I think very much falls into a very similar boat, probably has a little bit better promise to his career, especially during his time here in Denver. But I think now with the new team,
TJ Yeldon.
This works me quite a bit. TJ Yeldon, there's a good name. I'm actually going to go to the receiver position. I'm going to go with Jerry Jeudy, who is now a member of the Cleveland Browns. In 4 seasons in the NFL, Ted, Jerry Jeudy has never had a 1,000-yard receiving season. He's also never had over 70 receptions in a season either. Now, with those sort of numbers here, I'm sort of going to give you a gimme here. True or false, Tad? Jerry Jeudy has finished in the top 20 in PPR formats in any of the single seasons that he's played in the NFL.
Gonna go false.
That is absolutely correct. Yeah. So here is,
nailed it.
You want to know how bad it is too, Tad? So in his rookie year, he finished 45th in 2020. 2021, he finished 84th.
I forgot he had that really bad rookie season.
Yeah, 2021, he did get hurt, so he finished in 84th place. 2022 was the closest he got. He finished at 22. And then last year in 2023, he finished 50th. So it's been borderline, like, kind of bust territory because he's a former first-round pick, 15th overall by the Denver Broncos. And so it's like you thought that, with the addition of him, Courtland Sutton, like you thought he was just going to be a future number one in that offense, but just we never realized that potential. Now, they obviously traded him to the Cleveland Browns. And just, we've talked about the quarterback situation there. It's very much a question mark as far as what we're going to see with Deshaun Watson. Now, you can attribute some of the past, troubles that Jerry Jeudy experienced because his quarterback play, Tad, was never anything stellar.
It was atrocious. Atrocious is putting it nicely.
Teddy Bridgewater.
Okay.
Drew Lock.
Oof.
Russell Wilson.
Hey.
Brett Rippon.
No.
And Jarrett Stidham.
No.
Those were all the quarterbacks that he played with during his time in Denver. As mentioned, now we're going to Deshaun Watson here in Cleveland. Clearly, he's a shell of his previous self. Like, I think he could very much fit into this category, too, of like a boomer bust candidate, because I think Kevin Stefanski's job sort of depends on whether Deshaun Watson booms or whether he busts. I think it's very much the case here. But, Tad, in the 12 games that Deshaun Watson played in Cleveland across the past 2 seasons, 2023 and 2022, he has 2,217 passing yards, 14 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, and he took 37 sacks. Now, you have to remember, Brown's offensive line is actually pretty good. Like, probably one of the best in the NFL.
It's been consistently one of the best offensive lines in the NFL in the past, I would say, 5 years. They've done a very good job of keeping that intact.
And what does that tell me if the Deshaun Watson took 37 sacks? Like, that is in 12 games. That does not speak to me as far as like, this is a guy that can make smart decisions with such a strong offensive line that just like, he doesn't need to worry about too much, but it seems like he's overthinking and that's getting him into these problems. So that's why we see lower numbers. We're seeing the sack number pretty high and just overall, just nothing of the guy that we saw during his time in Houston when people thought he'd be one of the future stars at the position in the NFL here. So, I mean, Amari Cooper clearly is the main passing weapon in this offense, so he's going to get his. Behind that, we'll see probably a lot of David Njoku, but I think the hope is that Jerry Jeudy can sort of emerge in this offense, but that's really the big question because here's the big thing too, Tad, is that Cooper is going to be a free agent after this year. They voided his contract, so this is the last year that Cooper will be in Cleveland unless they work out a new contract, whereas Jeudy signed an extension when he was traded to Cleveland, so he is potentially the future in Cleveland if things work in his favor. Otherwise, he could find himself being traded to another team as well. So, I mean, just from what we've seen in Jeudy in Denver, I think we expected a lot more. And now going to Cleveland, it doesn't give me a lot of optimism that he's all of a sudden going to realize his potential with a very much more questionable situation at the quarterback position. So for me, I'm leaning very much towards that doom aspect with Jerry Jeudy here.
God, there's a lot to break down here. God, you just like pack like 3 players into one. First off, Amari Cooper is a Niner. That would have been cool to see. I would appreciate that, but I also
think on his Instagram post, like when they were talking about all that, they had like that framework. I think he posted, he's like, LOL, wouldn't mind that at all. So I was like,
fuck dude, I would have loved that. Are you kidding me? I get to be in one of the best offenses in football in my contract here. Yeah, I would have loved that as well. God, yeah, like I said, there's just so much breakdown here. First off, this is why you should listen to our podcast, because if you Google, make or break candidates, fantasy or otherwise, everyone's saying Deshaun Watson. He's a very popular pick. There's a reason you avoided him. There's a reason I avoided him. And I don't know if you agree with me here. It's not because he's make or break. He's broken. His career is done. Deshaun Watson's not the same. I don't know what it is. I'll go ahead and speculate. I personally think it was the year off. I think
it might have been.
A year off sounds very gentle for what it actually was, but a year away from football. We'll phrase it that way. I think that's what really ruined him. Is he just kind of, it's kind of like Tony Romo with broadcasting, where Romo was really good when those, scouting reports were fresh in his mind, and now that he's like 3 years out as a broadcaster, he's just not as good. I think Deshaun Watson's just done. I think he's going to be that will go down as the worst contract of all time. And God, it's just so hard. So I'm not going to make that joke. But trust me, you can connect the dots there.
I can infer from the.
Yeah, exactly. There you are. Okay. But I think that if Deshaun Watson's broken, then obviously this receiving game is going to be broken. Because let's remember, even back when this Browns passing game was much better under Joe Flacco, these Browns receivers were still not fantasy superstars. They were doing solid. They were, pretty good wide receiver twos, but none of them were really reaching wide receiver one numbers. Yeah. So let's assume best case scenario for Jeudy is a wide receiver two. But again, it's all about that name recognition. And so I think that's a big problem right there. Another problem is, and I know this is not scientific by any means, but it is fairly realistic, is whenever a couple months ago over the summer, when I had the time to try to do this, I was like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take over the Browns and Madden. I'm going to, rebuild that franchise. I just watched Draft Day. And what ended up happening was I was basically bankrupt for 5 seasons, even though I got Deshaun. One of my very first moves was get Deshaun the hell off my team. And I was still bankrupt because the way his contract works is they still owe him money for so many years. So it's like, okay, even if they get rid of Deshaun, because like you said, Jerry Jeudy could be the receiver of the future. Okay. But unless you hit on a Russell Wilson-esque type, Russell Wilson, Brock Purdy type draft pick, you're pretty much screwed for the next 4 to 5 years as a Cleveland Browns fan. I'm sorry. It sucks. It was a bad move. And it damned your franchise for years to come. So I like Jerry Jeudy as a player. I think he was never, and you kind of broke this down as well, with the amount of coaching turnover and quarterback turnover in Denver. He was never given a fair shake in Denver. He's still not going to get a fair shake in Cleveland. He is a victim of circumstance. So yes, I'm right there with you. He is a doomed fantasy candidate, but by no fault of his own.
That is fair.
Could you imagine Jerry Jeudy with the Dolphins? He would kill it.
Jerry Jeudy with the Dolphins, like hell, even in Indianapolis, like I feel like Anthony could get
why
more
would you
out of
do
it
that
too.
to me, you bastard.
Just like there's a lot of places where I think
I'll
he could
return
flourish
to
a lot
serve.
better.
Jerry Jeudy in San Francisco.
Hell yeah, I take that one too. But just unfortunately, not the case. Yeah, I just very much just not optimistic for his aspects as far as a fantasy player this upcoming season in Cleveland. So let's continue with this, Tad. Give me another candidate that you got for this category here.
This is the very definition of make it or break it, because like his teammate, we are sick of the hype. We are done with it. Yeah, I know he's super athletic. He looks good at times, but good God. And I'm kind of doing a 2-for-1 deal here. Kyle Pitts and or Drake London. Now, I'm going to focus mostly on Drake London here.
Okay.
But for the love of God, both of them need to figure their shit out right now.
That is for sure.
Because... So again, I'm going to focus mostly on Drake London, but a lot of these notes also apply to Kyle Pitts, where they were both first-round picks, both highly touted athletes, both out of, I almost said big, it's very hard to keep track now. One out of a Pac-12, no, they're not Pac-12 anymore.
They're not Pac-12 anymore.
Yeah, so one's out of a Big Ten school, and Kyle Pitts went to Florida, so they're still SEC, so there we go. Yes, but both out of like the 3 surviving conferences left in the hellscape that is college football.
Yes.
Point being is, highly touted prospects, both, I think it's fair to say, have underwhelmed pretty substantially so far in their career. Agree or disagree?
I 100% agree with that one.
Okay, wow, that might be a first. So, point being, though, is Drake London is the most egregious one, because I think Kyle Pitts was a clear case of misusage. What's the right
Sure.
word there? But like they just didn't know quite where to put him. Of like, do we put him a slot? Do we put him at traditional tight end? What do we do with him? And you think genius like Arthur Smith would be able to figure that one out, but apparently not. Drake London's a worst case in my opinion because Drake London is very clearly an outside receiver that plays like an outside receiver. Now, yes, he's only had 2 years in the league, and wide receiver, I've often said, takes the longest to figure out. So I'm not, then it's kind of giving away my pick a little bit. I'm not saying he's done yet. However, the fact that he's played now 2 near full seasons in the NFL is yet to reach over 1,000 yards or over 5 touchdowns is hugely concerning to me. Now, he has had the excuse of, well, look at the carousel hell that has been my quarterback, play. Fair enough. But now with Kirk Cousins coming in, that excuse is gone. And now with Zach Robinson coming in, taking over as offensive coordinator in a system. Excuse me for a minute. This is going to take a minute. In a system that we've seen receivers like Tyler Boyd, T. Higgins, Puka Nacua, Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, A.J. Brown, Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, Michael Pittman, Josh Downs, and let's not forget freaking Cooper Kupp succeed in. You have zero excuse now. That is a true list of all of the Sean McVay disciples have turned in like these receivers. They've turned into not superstars, but very productive receivers. And arguably every single name that I just went through. Let me do it again. Tyler Boyd, T. Higgins, Puka Nacua, Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, A.J. Brown, Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, Michael Pittman, Josh Downs, and let's not forget freaking Cooper Kupp have all been either inarguably or arguably more productive than Drake London has been in his 2 years in the NFL. You have zero excuse in that system not to be productive. So if he does not produce at least, I'm setting a benchmark for you, buddy, 1,000 yards and 7 touchdowns. That's right, 7 touchdowns. I'm calling the season a bust. And I'm saying you are done with the Falcons. It depends on the next team he goes to, because I really do think this is the last year where the Falcons are going to give Drake London and Kyle Pitts this type of leash where it's like, okay, you can underperform. I think that this is the final year where they had that luxury. Now, the real question is, do I think Drake London can get there? Absolutely. And here's why. Is because even if Kirk Cousins, let's say he's not ready for the start of the season, although all reports are saying he will be, let's say he goes down again with an injury because he is 38, 39, something. He's upper 30s. Michael Penix looked pretty good in that first preseason game. I know it's just one preseason game, but he looks surprisingly good. So now it's no longer like, wow, now look at these quarterbacks I'm dealing with. Dude, those quarterbacks look pretty good. So I actually think that Drake London will have a good season. So it's a make or break, but he's fallen in my boom category.
That's fair. I think just, with the additions that they've had on offense, the biggest one obviously being Kirk Cousins, it's like you're sensing a lot of optimism as far as fantasy potential with this overall offense. And so, I think just with everything that has happened in the past, I think you can sort of look at it as the past now. It's like, okay, let's look at now. What can we expect with this new look offense? We covered this in an episode here going into, what to expect for this fantasy offense. And so, I think Drake London is one of those candidates that I think can actually fulfill the boom aspect of the boomer bust candidates aspect, because being the number one in that offense, because we also just got word that Rondale Moore is going to be out for the year.
Right, I forgot about that.
The only other option outside of him will be Darnell Mooney and Kyle Pitts, obviously. So it's like that sort of limits as far as who's going to be getting more targets in this passing offense. So automatically you expect to be more targets being funneled towards Drake London. So you're a big fan of volume and targets, obviously. So it's like, that should be a good case as to why he could at least meet that 1,000-yard receiving mark, as well as at least 7 receiving touchdowns as well. So I like it.
By the way, I have to mention this real quick. I did truly forget about that because I was reading the article about Rondale Moore, and my favorite part of that article was at the end. They go, so they put Rondale Moore on the IR, and with that roster spot, they signed a punter. It's just like, oh God, I'm so sorry, Falcon fans. Like that must just be a miserable existence.
Yeah. I'm gonna get to my next candidate here, Tad, and this one pained me. Like this really pained me to put him on this list here, but it sort of qualifies here, and that name is Javonte Williams of the Denver Broncos. Williams enters a contract year with the Broncos here in 2024. So, I mean, they're expecting him to have a big year. All the reports out of training camp is that he's looking, faster, quicker. He's trimmed down quite a bit. So, I mean, he's looking like he could be a very capable running back in this offense, very reminiscent of what we saw in his rookie year. But the Denver Broncos also drafted Audric Estime in the 5th round. And a lot of people sort of saw with his talent level from Notre Dame that he potentially could develop into a leading running back for a backfield. So, I mean, maybe that's the hope here with the Denver Broncos, that he can eventually fill that role. Also, for some reason, Sean Payton has a love affair with the rookie from last year, Jaleel McLaughlin. Like, they're using him in the pass game, they're using him in the rush game as well. So it's like that's sort of going to eat into Javonte Williams' production as well. But I mean, yeah, like I said, in his rookie year, there's a reason why I was such a huge fan of Javonte Williams, is that in his rookie season, Williams racked up over 1,200 scrimmage yards and he scored 7 total touchdowns. Missed majority of the 2022 season. Unfortunately, he tore his ACL, LCL, and PCL on the same leg.
How many LCLs do you have in your knee?
You have a lot of ligaments in that leg. So, yeah, he pretty much tore all of them potentially
Dear
there.
Lord.
He came back last season.
I don't even think Marcus Lattimore tore that many ligaments.
Maybe he did, because Lattimore, he's something.
I honestly don't think he did.
He aggravated it again. I remember that too. So, but just anyway, so we're talking about Williams here. So he came back last season, 2023. He was looking pretty good, but you can still see that there's a little bit of hesitation, just not seeing that full, confidence that's like, okay, I could be the same guy that I once was. So now heading into 24, you're now a full season removed from that injury that you suffered in 2022. So the hope is that he can sort of develop further and become a leading running back in this offense. Because like I mentioned, he is in a contract year. So, I mean, if he doesn't produce here, he is very much going to be looking for a new team in the offseason. And I think the big thing as to why Sean Payton is sort of leaning more towards McLaughlin over Javonte Williams. Last season, McLaughlin in his rookie year averaged 5.3 yards per touch in that offense, compared to Javonte Williams averaging only 3.8 yards per touch. So, I mean, he was clearly getting more production from the touches that he was getting. So now if you expect that, we saw this in New Orleans, where it's like, Sean Payton was going to, Pierre Thomas. He was going to Chris Ivory. He was going to Deuce McAllister. I mean, there's lots of guys being involved in that running back situation there. That's like, we could see a similar thing happening here in Denver, where it's like Javonte may find himself being the odd man out if he can't clearly take a stranglehold of this backfield. So, believe me, I'm still trying to be the optimist because I love Javonte Williams. I'm leaning more towards that boom aspect. That's like, he'll get his confidence back, and he'll be a leading rusher for them. But there's a lot of things that could go against him. And so, yeah, that's why he sort of falls into this category in today's episode.
Yeah, no, and I wasn't kidding when I said I actually love this pick. And the reason I say that is because for the past 3 years, I made fun of you for your man crush on Javonte Williams.
You have.
And you know what, buddy? It's only taken 3 or 4 years, but guess what? I'm on the boat with you. We'll ride this wagon right down the hill. Hopefully it's a good, bottom, but we'll see. Yeah. I actually think this is the year where he finally kind of breaks out. And the reason for that being is even if Bo Nix isn't the Broncos starter, none of their quarterback options are all that great. And so I think it's going to be I almost said Sean McVay. That they wish. Sean Payton leaning very heavily on the run and that's why I said, damn it, is because what this offense is kind of reminding me of is because, yes, people are going to go, what do you mean Sean Payton likes to run? Look at all, what he did with Drew Brees and Robert Meacham, Marquise Colson. And yes, that is all true. But at the same time, there's a misconception surrounding those Saints teams where, yeah, that's what you saw at SportsCenter. But if you actually watch those Saints teams, it would be run, pass. And that was their whole offense, was like they would like ground the defense and kind of bait them into a heavy blitz. And that's why they were able to, bomb it, 30 yards to Traquan Smith. So I think that's kind of what this Broncos offense is going to look like with whoever it ends up being, an inexperienced quarterback. So that's why I was saying, damn, with Deuce McAllister, because here's how I see this shaking out is I think McLaughlin is definitely going to be involved in this offense.
Yes, he will.
I think McLaughlin's going to be the Reggie Bush to Javonte Williams, Deuce McAllister. But if you go back and look, Deuce McAllister's stats weren't all that impressive, but fantasy-wise, he did get you enough touchdowns to stay fantasy relevant. I think that's where Javonte Williams' sweet spot is going to be. As long as he's the anti-vulture, right? He is the vulture. It's like he's going to be vulturing McLaughlin rather than the counter. And that's always what my biggest complaint about Javonte Williams was, is he always had vulture behind him. But now, the roles have switched. He is now the vulture. So I think that Javonte Williams has very good potential to actually be pretty fantasy relevant this year, as long as he can stay healthy. That is the biggest question mark, as is, with most players. But I really, really think that of all your picks tonight, he has the biggest boom potential.
Javonte Williams, aka Adrian Toombs. So Ted, let's slip in a few more candidates here. You got one more for me that could fill in today's episode.
Yeah, I love this. But I love this because I think I'm just gonna throw him in the gloom territory right now because I'm really petty.
Pre-glooming him, all right.
Yeah, I'm pre-glooming him. Will Levis. Not only, and like we said with a lot of these guys, not only is he a make or break it in fantasy football, this is a make or break it year for him on the field. And I meant to mention this earlier with Javonte Williams is I hope he breaks it this year because if he doesn't, especially being a running back, I don't see him get another chance in the league. I think that this is his last shot in the NFL. I hope I'm wrong with that, but you see this all the time with young running backs, kind of going in and out of like, oh, Javonte Williams signed with, I don't know, the Jets. And then all of a sudden he's part of the August 30th cuts. I see a similar future for Will Levis if he doesn't show up this year, where, his contract is, not big enough to force a team to stay with him. And you look at what the Titans, so he scared the shit out of me last season by, his rookie debut. I was like, oh, this is going to be great. Prime time, Tennessee, Atlanta. Let's watch this shit show. Did he just throw 4 touchdowns?
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh, no, please not another one. We already had to deal with CJ Stroud. We already had to deal with, who's the other one? Well, yeah, we kind of had to deal with him. Please don't give me another one. But get this. So that was about halfway through the season. Over the next 8 games, he threw for only 4 touchdowns. So the same amount he threw for on his debut, he matched over the next 8 games. Now, I'm not going to necessarily blame him for that. He is a little bit to blame, but not really, because that offense was just horrifically set up. Who thinks Treylon Burks is a good replacement for AJ Brown?
Yeah, that was a bad move.
So bad. So bad. So anyway, I'm not necessarily blaming Levis, which is why he makes my make or break list, because I do see the promise there. And we even talked about this, during the draft process when both you and I were evaluating him, is there is a lot of good there, but there's also a lot of bad. And so can this new Tennessee coaching staff harness the good? And here's what makes me worry for Levis, though, is I was kind of hoping for his sake, not for the Titans' sake, that, the Titans would take it a little easy, kind of not go full rebuild. I didn't want them to do that because that would have been the wrong move, but kind of go for what I call the quasi rebuild of like, we'll stay competitive and hopefully we, hit on a couple draft picks here and there. Nope. They went all in this offseason. They went all in. They signed Calvin Ridley. They made sure that DeAndre Hopkins returned. Let's not forget they signed Tyler Boyd, probably one of the more underrated signings of this season. And let's not forget they signed, why do I keep doing this to myself, Tony Pollard?
Tony Pollard.
Thank
they
God.
did sign him.
It only took 4 years and I finally nailed the name. Point being is they went all in on this offense. So if Will Levis can't make it work this year, he's donezo, which is really unfortunate. So I think that if he can make it work fantasy-wise, he could be, honestly, sleeper quarterback of the year. This is a guy that if he can show us like his peaks from last year, I'm going to be a very, very angry person because, God damn it, now we have 3 legitimate quarterbacks to worry about in this division. 4, hopefully, if AR can stay healthy. But that is a good enough offense where he can legitimately produce in fantasy football for you to not only just be a streaming option, but to be a borderline legitimate week-to-week starting option. However, the other side of the coin is if he doesn't make it work, the Titans are going to quit on him so goddamn fast. So that's the whole thing is he's on a very, very short leash this year. So Will Levis, the definition of boomer bust candidate for this year. Not just in fantasy football, but that as well, but also on the field. It's going to be fascinating also because, like I said, the Titans have invested a lot in this offense over the next 2 or 3 years. They could be a very interesting QB player in the offseason next year.
That's going to be very much the case because, you look at the Titans and their offense definitely, I think, hinges on Will Levis because, we heard the news a couple of weeks ago that DeAndre Hopkins suffered an injury. He's going to be out 4 to 6 weeks. So they're going to start the season a little bit behind as far as the receiver room is concerned.
No, it's okay. They have Treylon Burks.
They're going to lead heavily on Calvin Ridley, Treylon Burks, Tyler Boyd, as you mentioned as well, obviously. So those are the guys there. And that they did make some additions on defense, but overall, if they're not seeing success with Will Levis, like, I mean, we're talking about this when we do our season preview, but it's like the Titans could find themselves maybe in that top 12 range when it comes to the NFL draft next year. And that's sort of in a range where it's like you maybe are thinking about getting another quarterback. So it's like, same thing that we saw where it's like when they drafted Malik Willis and we thought that was going to be the future for the Titans, and clearly it didn't go in that direction. They obviously drafted Will Levis. It's like we could see the same thing now happen with Will Levis. So it's like maybe they'll start looking at Quinn Ewers or Carson Beck or, you know, Jackson Dart. Like, I mean, I don't know who's going to emerge. Obviously, we'll get to that.
This is the reason I love podcasting with you so much is you did not mention Shedeur Sanders once. God, I love you.
Because Shedeur Sanders is going to go number 1 overall. Like, that's
he's not. Right? You get the fuck out of here. That's Carson Beck's spot.
He should go number 1 overall, but somebody's going to take him number 1 overall.
Let's make a bet.
He will not be in there. He'll not.
He's not going number 1.
He's not going to be there 12. So that's why I'm not even going to list his name there. But yes,
that's But that's what I mean is like next, and we're doing a separate podcast now. But the next offseason,
it's Inception, a podcast within a podcast.
Exactly. But no, that's what I mean is they're going to be next year, or I guess this year's Vikings, where it's like, what the hell are the Vikings going to do? Because they need they're good enough where they're not going to be in position to get one of the top quarterbacks in the draft, but they still are probably going to need a top quarterback unless Will Levis. I mean, and again, I'm in such a weird position because I loved Will Levis as a prospect. This is why I was so mad when Tennessee drafted him, because I really want Will Levis to work out. I just don't want it to be in Tennessee.
Yeah, that's a tough situation to be in. So, yeah, I mean, the Titans are very much, like I said, hinging on the fact of whether Will Levis succeeds or fails, because, then they'll have to make a very important decision come the next offseason as far as, like I said, trading for a veteran option or, considering, depending on where they are in the draft order. Like I said, I could see them possibly being in the top 12 for sure, maybe top 10. We'll see about that, which is very much in the conversation to take a quarterback in that top sort of situation there. So, we'll see. But Levis is very much, I'm not sure which direction he's going to go in.
Is Aaron Rodgers going to finish as a Titan?
Based on the track record, he should finish in Minnesota because that's exactly what Favre did, right? And it's like based on the news that we heard about JJ McCarthy knee injury, he's got to get his knee surgery on his knee because he suffered an injury. It's like, are they going to be a situation where Sam Darnold leaves and it's like now they're not ready for McCarthy yet either? They're going to trade for Aaron Rodgers. That could possibly happen. It is in the cards the way it's playing out kind of right now.
Well, I mean, based off Rodgers' track record, I think he'd be right at home in Tennessee.
He could be. I'm going to get to my last candidate here, Tad. I'm going to stick at the AFC. I'm going to go with Raheem Mostert of the Miami Dolphins. Ooh. Now, you look at the season that he had last year, Tad. Best season of his career last year. That was easily the case there. Written off by most teams early in his career, like he was on so many practice squads. They finally caught up with the Niners, made a name for himself, and then obviously came to Miami where he had just a career year last year. Scored 21 total touchdowns and had over 1,100 scrimmage yards last season. He only missed 2 games last season after being sort of labeled an injury-prone type of player. But that's the big thing as to why he sort of falls into this category here is because knocking on the door is the rookie De'Von Achane, and then they also
no longer rookie.
The rookie from last year, but then they also drafted a rookie this year at Tennessee, Jalen Wright, who a lot of people are expecting to take on a bigger role as well, just in his rookie year. So I mean, it's just like you look at that, and last year Raheem Mostert finished as the RB5 in PPR leagues, and so it's like you see those numbers, it's like, why would he fall in this category? The biggest thing, like I said, is because of the injuries, and then we saw in a very brief time that Achane was being a very capable running back in this offense with that speed and that athleticism, because Tad, from weeks 3 to weeks 5, Achane had 518 scrimmage yards and 7 total touchdowns. Now, obviously, part of that's a little skewed with that blowout in Denver, but I mean, still, he's able to back it up with 2 100-yard performances after that as well. So, I mean, the guy is very capable, but the thing is which is also hinges on De'Von Achane possibly being overdrafted, is we saw that in a brief span. We didn't see that consistently because then he got hurt. But after that, he suffered a knee injury, and then he also suffered a foot injury, so he missed 4 of the next 5 games after week 5. So, we'll have to see whether just, who's going to be healthy in this backfield. But I think the biggest thing is that if Mostert could stay healthy, he's very much going to be the leading running back in this backfield. But that's the big key thing here is like he played in 15 games last season. That's why he's able to compile the numbers that he had. But it's like he had success in San Francisco. He got hurt, which has obviously led to him finding a new home here in Miami. So it's like if he stays healthy, he's good. But if he gets hurt, it's very much a situation where he could find himself on a new team next year because Tad, he is on the wrong side of 30. He is entering the season as a 31-year-old running back.
32,
you also
actually. I just looked it up, 32.
He's going to be 32, excuse me. So, but here's the bigger thing, Tad, is that if De'Von Achane and Jalen Wright find themselves as being like, okay, yeah, we could lead this backfield for the next handful of years, they can cut Mostert in the offseason and they'll only take a $1 million cap hit against their cap. So it's like, that's a low cost as far as like, okay, yeah, you are old. We are ready with these younger guys to lead our backfield. So, you're gone. But if he could stay healthy and be a productive member of that backfield this year too, like if he could capitalize on what he did last year and do it this year in 2024, I think Miami may hang on to him for at least one more year to be like, all right, let's just make sure Achane and Jalen Wright can be the future. Maybe they'll need to figure something else out as far as the backfield situation, but they could hang on to Mostert for one more year. But just that is the key thing as far as Mostert being in this category of boomer bust is the health factor.
So, boom or doom in your book?
I think I'm going to have to lead towards more doom because I feel like last year was an anomaly as to why he was able to stay healthy for so long. And part of me feels that just like, yeah, in that type of offense. And like I said, I saw this firsthand in San Francisco because he had that killer season in 2019 down the stretch. He absolutely decimated the Packers in the NFC Championship game, tied the record for most rushing touchdowns in a game. And just like the next year, he got hurt. The next year, he got hurt. And then he found himself in Miami. And so it's like, he's able to stay healthy, but just like, I feel like he's pushing his luck too much. And I think he's going to get hurt this year.
I'm going to go neither boom nor doom.
Okay.
I'm going to make my own category here because this whole, episode is make it or break it candidates basically, or boom or bust candidates. And I don't think he's a make it or break it candidate. I think he is a, this is it candidate.
That's fair.
I think he's going to have one pretty solid year. I'm not going to say he's going to do amazing or he's going to bust. Either way, I think he's going to finish as, RB 13, 14, 15, somewhere in that range. But this is the last year he's fantasy relevant. Because like you said, he's one of the older, more consistent running backs in the NFL at 31, 32. Really doesn't matter. They're essentially the same thing. And I think that the biggest thing is Mike McDaniel knows this is a very high pressure year for Miami. They put together, even with the loss of Christian Wilkins and, other key players, they put together a pretty, Calais Campbell is a Dolphin. Did you know that?
Calais Campbell's a Dolphin. Jordan Poyer is a Dolphin.
Yeah. So they put together some real veteran talent there. And I think they recognize that, especially with Buffalo having the rough offseason they have, this is Miami's chance to pounce on this division. So all this to say is I think that when in the red zone, Mike McDaniel knows you can get cute, but get cute with someone who knows the system. Achane may be at that point. But also I think that Mike McDaniel will lean more on the veteran leadership of Mostert knows better what to do in the system. So I think Mostert will be leaned on pretty heavily in the red zone system, and that will lead to enough scores to keep him fantasy relevant. But if you're in a dynasty league, I'm staying the hell away from Mostert because I think, again, this is it. Not make it or break it, but this is it. I think that he has one more good year left in him, and I hope he makes the most of it. But yes, I completely agree where Achane, and especially Wright, I love that Wright pick. When they made that pick in the draft, I thought that was, were we broadcasting during that?
He was drafted in the third round, so yeah.
So he must have been, that might have been while Max was on, but
possible.
But shout out to Max. But point being is, I really like the way this Dolphins offense is set up, and I hope Mostert makes the most of this year because, like I said, I think he may be able to stick around for one or two more seasons. But really, this does feel like kind of the swan song for him.
It very much could be the case here, but just, I think I'm leaning more towards that. He got very lucky last year, but I could find him missing a handful of games this year, which is going to affect his overall fantasy performance. And then in that span where he's out, Wright and Achane will sort of take advantage and be like, like you said, this is his sort of final year with Miami. We'll see if he catches on with somebody else in the offseason, but it's tough to rely on Mostert this year, in my opinion.
Speaking of 49ers randos, where's Elijah Mitchell at now?
He's still in San Francisco, but
what?
Yeah, that is the question mark because he's been out with an ankle injury, so he didn't play.
I forgot about that.
Jordan Mason has been playing really well with them, so it's like he's possibly got that front runner spot for that running back number 2 position. They signed Keyshawn Vaughn. They also signed Matt Breida, former Niner, as well.
Jesus.
So it's like
Matt Breida is still playing.
There's a lot of Niner running backs.
Who's next? Michael James?
Right Isaac Guerrero, who they obviously drafted. They brought in Cody Schrader. So it's like there's a lot of running backs in that room. So it's like, yeah, we could see a situation very similar to like when they traded Jeff Wilson Jr. to the Miami Dolphins, where it's like a running back could get traded in the offseason as we get closer to that cut deadline, going from the 90 to the exact 54-man roster, 53-man roster, whatever it is. So yeah, Elijah Mitchell is currently a Niner, but he may not be for long, especially when you look at teams like we talked about in the past with like Dallas, where they only have Ezekiel Elliott and maybe Rico Dowdle. So it's like they could come calling. I mean, there's a lot of options out there as far as candidates that may decide to call the Niners to be like, hey, let's take off some of your guys that you may cut. We'll just swap you, 2027 6th round pick or something like that. Like I could see that happening. So we'll see. But yeah, to answer your question, Elijah Mitchell, as of right now, is still a San Francisco 49er.
Hashtag bring back Juszczyk.
Juszczyk's already still on the team.
Wait, he's a Niner or he's in Baltimore? Or
he's no, a Niner.
Yeah, damn it. Like, he was in Baltimore for a bit, wasn't he?
Yeah, he started Baltimore, but okay.
I'm mixing up the time frames.
Yes,
I don't know. You guys change those guys out like they're freaking Uno cards. Cards.
Exactly. So those are our bounce back candidates, boomer bust candidates, make it or break it candidates. I mean, whatever you want to call them, but just like, yeah, they very much are under the microscope as far as this year's concerned, as far as whether they could be reliable going forward, or yeah, guys like Raheem Mostert, maybe this is their final year as far as being fantasy relevant, whatever it is. That was today's episode. We appreciate everybody that tuned in. Guys, for all of our future episodes, make sure you subscribe to our podcast, wherever you listen to your podcast. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel as well, so you're always up to date with our YouTube channels as well. But guys, the biggest thing that we can't stress enough is that we may not be able to cover everything that we want to when we come to the fantasy offseason leading up to your draft. That is where our social media handles come in for you guys. Interact with us. Hit us up on Twitter. You got me at OtherSide23, Tad at TadSide94, got the show handle at The Decide Guys, and of course on Instagram at The Decide Guys as well. Hit us up with your questions. We want to know how to help you with specific things, whether it comes to, you're drafting at the 4 spots, like who are guys that I need to be targeting, who are guys that I need to be worried about as far as trades once you're in the season, who are guys that I need to pick up off the waiver wires. Like, I mean, just anything and everything when it comes to your fantasy league. Interact with us. We want to give you personalized advice because, yeah, like I said, we can't cover everything in our fantasy episodes. Once we get into season, we get very routine, so it's very hard for us to sort of go out of that and divert and bring up a lot of other fantasy topics. So that's where social media comes in handy, So interact with us, DM us, whatever it is. Me and Tad are here for you to help you win your respective fantasy football leagues. And guys, please make sure you're supporting our parent network at LAFB Network, because without them, there would be no us. They're giving you a lot of great content when it comes to the Rams and the Chargers at the professional level, and the Bruins and the Trojans when it comes to the college football level. So great coverage for all 4 LA football teams. So guys, everybody's already listened to the podcast, who's watching our videos, who's interacting with us on social media, who's asking us fantasy questions. I mean, just anything and everything that you're doing to support the podcast. We really can't thank you enough.
And look, we've got little under a month left before NFL kickoff, as you mentioned, between the Kansas City Chiefs and Baltimore Ravens.
That's correct. Yep.
Thank you. I need to make sure that Eagles-Packers game is getting me confused.
That's the game right after it.
So confusing. All I know about that is they're not supposed to wear green, which will be very interesting to see how that works out. But bottom line being is we are just weeks away from NFL kickoff. And so if you want us to cover certain content, you have a very limited time to let us know. Our schedule is still pretty flexible, and we want to adapt to your guys' needs, but we need to know pretty soon because we are very close to solidifying our schedule. We want to help you, so let us know. If you want us to cover this one topic or another topic, hit us up, like Amir said, on those socials, or reach out to LAFB on Reddit. Our Reddit page is doing really well. We're getting a lot of great interaction there, or the YouTube comments. We got great feedback from our 101 series via YouTube. We really appreciate it. We are taking it into account. So we do look at those things. So let us know. That is a great way to contact us. But, guys, we appreciate the support because we're going into this will be our 4th NFL season.
This is our 4th NFL season. This is our 3rd season covering fantasy football specifically.
Good God. So yeah, we've been doing this for a while now. It's been a good run, buddy. But yes, bottom line being is we do this for you guys. And so please let us help the Jerry Maguire thing. Help me help you. So as always, everyone, thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. And please stay safe, everyone.